Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World Rebirth release, another Frenzy Pack, as this time we have the Minqaria. Now, I don't know for sure if I said the name correctly. It's not a species I'm very familiar with. It's also a pretty new species. I think it was only established last year, if I remember correctly, and it's not known from very much. I think it's only like part of the skull, so we have very little when it comes to the information on this species. So it's another one of those instances where it's pretty impressive that Mattel has gone ahead and created a figure of it. They've really been out to kind of create a lot of more newer and obscure species, which is pretty interesting. But you can see the packaging again, pretty much the standard, and then of course here on the back showing off the other figures in the wave. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So here is our adorable little Hadrosaur, and honestly, it is one of the nicest looking Hadrosaur sculpts I think that Mattel has produced in quite some time. Like, every once in a while, I feel like when Mattel releases a Hadrosaur, there's just always something that looks a little off about it, but this one looks pretty good overall. I would say probably one of their better sculpts. Again, I can't say, how accurate it is because we don't know a whole lot about it, so your guess is as good as mine, but it looks good as far as what they've created here with the figure. Just a lot of guesswork, though. But if you go ahead and start here in the head sculpt, you can see the head sculpt looks pretty good. You've got a nice bluish tone for the primary body color. You also have a light tone that runs there from the beak down into the throat, but disappears pretty quickly. We can see the nostrils sculpted out. The beak itself also has some fairly decent detail to it, just no actual paintwork for the beak, sadly. There is a nice crest up there on the top of the head, and you can see that is painted with a brownish tone. I think it looks pretty decent, not really super flashy, but looks good for what it is. And again, you can see the actual texturing to the crest also looks quite nice. When you look at it from the front, you can see kind of like a little bit of a wide head sculpt for this one, as far as like the cheekbone area goes. We can also see the eyes are painted with a green, given a black pupil. This eye is slightly misplaced, but not too bad overall. There's also a very different style skin texture as you move up from the beak there compared to the scale detail that we see in the face. As you move back into the body, you can see the scales look really quite vibrant, definitely very nicely done. Again, a very different style to the scales up there on the back of the neck and head compared to the scales here on the side of the dinosaur. It does change fairly abruptly right there, and again, just larger scales up there that actually turn into kind of like a scoot-like appearance as you move further down into the neck, leading up into the back of the dinosaur. We do have neck articulation, of course, just up and down. That's pretty much it as far as this one goes. But as you move down, you can see there's also a little bit of like a speckling that kind of appears here and there. As far as like the greenish tone, it looks like, or maybe a tan. It's kind of hard. It looks green there, but kind of looks maybe green or tan back here. It's hard to tell exactly. But moving up into the body, we can very clearly see that the skin texture and scales do get a good bit larger. They also kind of look here in the body similar to the way that they look up here, sort of. But again, there's also on top of that kind of rough and rugged skin texture, a few osteoderms and stuff popping up here and there. As you move down the front leg here, you can get a good feel for the muscle definition, and again, some more variation to the skin texture and the style of the skin texture. We can also see the elbow back there. Moving down into the foot sculpt, they have given this 2 toes, or actually 3 toes, 2 primary toes and then 1 toe here on the side. We have the nails sculpted out and of course unpainted, which is very common for frenzy packs and stuff like this. But I think overall, again, it looks decent. I just don't know how accurate it is because we don't know very much about this one. But as you move up, you do have that kind of scoot-like appearance moving over the spinal column. There are also like some small ridges following along the spinal column right there. More like osteoderms, I would say, more so than ridges. We also have some more of that brownish tone, that same similar tone of brown that we see in the crest that randomly pops up here in the back and then randomly pops back up again out here as you lead into the tail, and then it's just gone forever. You don't have any more of that paintwork. Kind of lackluster paint apps on this one as well. But as you move down into the leg, you can see the musculature of the thigh looking really quite nice. Again, large scales like we see in the body. We have the kneecap right there. We also have some scoots moving moving down the shin, the calf muscle, nice, big, and bulging, very different style to the skin texture in the calf compared to the scales in the thigh. And then as you move down into the foot sculpt, you can see the scoots moving down the toes. And again, the claws are sculpted just unpainted, but we have some pretty vibrant skin texture as you move along the side of the toes and up into the rear of the foot. Of course, we have articulation forward and back here and here, so it's pretty much the standard, no like out away from the body, just forward and back. As we move up into the tail, again we see that last little area of that brown coloration. We also see some more really nice looking scale detail that does become pretty fine as you move further out. We are definitely leaving that larger skin texture that we see through a good bit of the body as we lead out into the tail, though we do still have that sort of scoot-like appearance, almost like that slightly armored kind of look to the top of the tail as you lead out. There is a swivel section out here as well, which again is pretty useless, but you have a nice curve to the tail as well as you lead out. Just a slight curve, nothing major, but adding a little bit of life to the figure, which I quite like. The biggest difference over here is going to be the positioning of the legs. As you can see, the dinosaur is in a bit of a walking pose, so this leg is currently like picking up off of the ground to take another step, and they've sculpted the leg out very nicely. Same deal with the rear leg, which is kind of planted, but still looks pretty good. Again, very vibrant detail throughout, and that's really about it, I think, as far as the differences go from one side to the other. There is the fax app code for you to add this one to your collection, but also, again, you can see the detail and everything on the underside if my camera would focus on it. The skin texture is a bit different here on the underside compared to what we see on the upper side as well. But it is absolutely a really nicely sculpted figure. Mattel definitely did a good job on the fine detail of this one, and again giving us a species of hadrosaur that odds are you probably didn't have prior, especially considering it is fairly new. But as far as the size goes, lengthwise, you are looking at about, I would say, a little over 7¼ inches, or around 18½ centimeters. And then for a height in the position it's currently in, about 3¼ inches, or just shy of 8½ centimeters in height. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being next to our Minqaria, and you can see again, it's pretty much the same size there as the Colovosaurus, a little bit taller than the Colovosaurus, but overall they are extremely similar in size. And honestly, this is the comparison that I felt like was probably going to be the most helpful, because it's such a similar style species that you can see as far as like the sculpt and everything walking, you know, quadrupedally, and even actually kind of similar in color. You can see again, it's also a figure that's been out for a long time that many people have, so I felt like that one specifically would be a good comparison with this figure. And then just a few randoms, as we have a Mattel Velociraptor and Mattel Dilophosaurus next to our Minqaria, and some random quadrupedal figures that we use quite often for reviews. First, we have the Schleich Diabloceratops, which is roughly in the same similar size range. And then, of course, the Collect Day Deluxe Dimetrodon for one final comparison. The Frenzy Packs, Danger Packs, that kind of thing, they're usually always in the same size range, so I don't feel like there's many comparisons needed for these figures. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Rebirth Frenzy Pack Minqaria is a very cool figure, honestly. I would say it's probably the star of the show for this wave of Frenzy Packs. Like, it's such a super cool species, a very new species, so it's one that, you know, most people probably aren't going to have, if anyone at all. So it's an exciting one to be able to add to our collections, but it's also just generally, I'd say, one of the nicest looking hadrosaurs that Mattel has released. Like, sculpt-wise, it's quite beautiful. It would be a really fun one to repaint, so when this one becomes more abundant in stores, I will definitely be picking another one up and repainting it at some point, assuming that happens. But again, it is a very nice looking figure when it comes to the overall design as well as the actual fine detail. It's all very crisp and very vibrant. Of course, being a Frenzy Pack, there's not a whole lot when it comes to playability or anything, but you do have some articulation. It's very standard stuff, you know, nothing super impressive as far as that goes, but it works nicely. No real issues as far as that goes. The paint apps are pretty lackluster, and they have been on this wave the entire way through, I would say. I don't know exactly if they're horrible the entire way through the wave, because I don't really recall what the other two look like. I haven't really taken them out of the box quite yet. But again, the paint apps of this one are just really lackluster. There's not much to it, but at the same time, it looks natural. I just wish, they'd paint the claws or something on these figures. Again, it feels like maybe Mattel is starting to run out of ideas as far as their paint apps go, though, because this one is super, super basic. But if you are interested in this, you can find this in certain Walmarts. I know specifically they've been mostly found in Texas so far, and that's where I was able to acquire mine, thanks to my good buddy Eric, who helped to find this and the other figures and send them my way. So again, a massive thank you goes out to him for consistently helping me to acquire some of these newer Rebirth figures. Absolutely awesome of him. But if you are interested, keep checking your Walmarts. Hopefully it'll show up at some point in the very near future. And like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.